Currently the board member and president of Libertarian International, also the director of International Society for Individual Liberty, and a committee member of the Libertarian Alliance. Mr. Michel founded a company in Geneva that dealt with the protection of individuals against unfair taxation and any problems in general that they had with bureaucracy. And he decided to sell his company and move to London, where he lives and works today. He often speaks at libertarian conferences, such as this one today, and he's here with us to talk about the laws in our countries, or more precisely, whether we should obey the laws even when they're democratically approved. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker for today, Mr. Christian Michel.
Thank you very much. And thank you all for being here. It's wonderful to see how many people are now interested in creating a better world. And because this is what we do, actually, we bring a little stone very humbly, but very surely, for the foundations of a society that is more just, more prosperous, and more peaceful. As Nana has just said, the title of the talk is should we obey the laws of our country? And if you had asked me that question a few years ago, I would have said, well, if you believe that obeying the laws of your country makes you a better person, if you believe that it enriches your life, then be my guest. Obey the laws. Today, I have a very different answer to that question. And this is why I would like to share this reflection with you. Now, of course, human beings are social animals. There are no human beings outside of a society. And a society is like a cybernetic system. It needs rules. Without rules, there is chaos. Everything is possible. Everything may happen. And in a society, we need to have a certain type of organization. We need to have rules. But these rules are of different types. And this is what I would like to analyze with you. The first of these rules is morality. It is the hierarchy that we place on the things that we value: life, health, love, beauty, social recognition, family, work, money. We put all these values in a specific hierarchy of preferences. And that list of preferences is what constitutes our morality. It is what gives our life meaning. It is what philosophy and religions have taught us for millennia, guiding us towards what the Greeks had called eudaimonia, the good life. They teach purpose and authenticity. Being true to oneself and responsible makes for a richer life, gives more meaning to our existence, for deeper, fuller, bigger existence, and to escape the littleness of everyday life, to see beauty in things. Are these values just subjective? Can we just say that it's all relative? You believe this, I believe that, and there is no discussion. Well, that would be a topic for another occasion. But let me say that I believe my value, my lifestyle, my religion, if I had one, if that is good for me, if it makes me a better person, it doesn't give me rights. Being right does not give rights. To give you an example, there are everywhere in Europe churches dedicated to Saint Martin, huge churches. And you know who Saint Martin was? He was an officer in the Roman army, a small officer. And he's famous for just one thing, well, besides being a martyr. But he's famous for one thing, and you see this on stained glasses, you see this on pictures. As he was patrolling somewhere near Belgium today, cold, snow, and there was a beggar on the side of the road. And Martin took the big cloak around him and sliced it with his sword and gave half the cloak to the beggar who was freezing. Now, that is maybe admirable, but imagine another story. Imagine that the general behind Martin had told Martin, give half your cloak to the beggar. Where is generosity? Who is acting morally? The general? He doesn't take anything off his back. Martin, he can only obey. And it puts the beggar in a very difficult position. Because who does the beggar thank? Martin? Well, Martin was just a pawn. Martin didn't want to give his coat. The general? Well, the general hasn't given anything. You see how morality is completely vitiated, doesn't exist, if we do not have the freedom to exercise our values. There are few projects that we can make by ourselves. Division of labor is absolutely essential in society. Imagine if you had to produce your own electricity, your own food, your own pharmaceuticals, and so on. So we need another type of laws, another type of rules in society, besides morality. And these are contracts. And especially this type of contracts, which are the internal regulations of many societies, clubs, associations, universities, and so on, where we spend most of our existence, and including families, when we form one, marriage. All these associations have their own set of rules. Corporations are simply a web of contracts linking shareholders, directors, suppliers, employees, trade unions, and so on. We need these contracts. And do they restrict our freedom? Of course they do not. What would be freedom if it was not the freedom to make commitments? That is what freedom is about. I mean, to say, I'm free, but without exercising your freedom and making commitments, that is not being free. That is being outside of a world, outside of society. There is no abstract freedom for the same reason that there is no abstract love. There are only evidences of love, proofs of love, acts of love. But contracts, as we have said with Martin, contracts need consent. And to consent to something is not to get what we want. I don't want to work for £25,000 a year or whatever it is. I want 250,000. I want 2,500,000. But nobody is giving me this. So I take what is on offer. And I've made that choice by consent, because nobody is holding a gun to my head saying, you will accept £25,000. Now, if I go to you and I say, okay, choose. Go on, choose. Choose? You don't choose? Of course, because the question that comes to your lips is choose what? In order to choose, you have to have a menu. And menus sometimes are not very appetizing. Sometimes life deals cards that you would prefer not to have. Disabilities, extreme poverty, being under a regime that you fiercely object to. But still, there is some freedom inside this. And this is what makes us individuals with responsibility, individuals with objectives, individuals with purpose in life. The sum total of these contracts is what we call a market. Markets are not the aggregate of all transactions that are for profit. Markets are the aggregate of all transactions that are done by consent. Churches, charities, trade unions, families, friendships, that's all part of a market. Society and economy, organized by contracts, have this wonderful property, is that they allow the emergence of the new. Markets and consent give better chance for a big life, a life transfigured by ambition, by surprise, by struggle. And that is the characteristic of a free society. A free society has faith in the constructive powers of ordinary men and women. Constructive powers that you can express in technology, in the arts, in science, in lifestyles. A free society makes use of our dormant energies. That's what it does. But every innovation threatens some established form of cooperation. Someone out there is going to resist that innovation. It meets with resistance. That is what the establishment, as the name implies, will be fighting innovation. And it will call on governments to be on the side of big business against markets. Most governments, I would probably say all governments, are pro-business and anti-markets. We need to force capitalists to embrace capitalism. Capitalists hate capitalism, hate markets. They want protection. They want protection for their profits. But as Joseph Schumpeter has said, what markets are is a process of creative destruction. It's a process where the new entrants, the young, are challenging the old, the established. Morality is expressed in I language. It is, for me, my morality. And contracts are expressed in we language. It is us. What we want to do. Just us, not the others. But there is a third type of rules. Because they are, just raise your hand. You don't need to call me if you want to. Sorry about that. There are billions of people with whom we have no contract. We are not going to form an association with them. So we need some type of rule that is already there, that gives us some kind of security whether we land in Uruguay, in Ukraine, in Uganda. And that is what we call rights. They are universal. And they are it language. They are impersonal. They don't belong to you or to me or to us, just there for all of us, all 7 billion people on this planet. Rights between human beings perform the same function in human societies than science does in the physical world. They create predictability. With science, I know that the ceiling is not going to fall on our head. I know that the flight I'm going to take this afternoon is not going to crash. The probability of all this is so low that we can live with a kind of certainty. And we can walk in the streets without being mugged. That is what rights give you. Contracts will be honored. So, as social individuals, we have an intuition that we need contracts. And they were declared in this famous French Declaration of Human Rights of 1789. And we believe that this is the foundation of rights. But let me give you a very short example. Article 10 of this declaration reads, "No one shall be disquieted on account of his opinions, including his religious views." That's what Article 10 says. But wait, it doesn't stop there. It continues, provided their manifestation of his opinions, does not disturb the public order established by legislation. Hey, suddenly you have a right, but that right must not be against legislation. Article 11, every citizen may speak, write, and print with freedom. So far, so good. That's what we want, okay? But the article goes on, but shall be responsible for such abuses of this freedom as shall be defined by legislation. That is something that Stalin could have signed on. Ayatollahs in Iran could have signed on. Article 17, since property is an inviolable and sacred right, nobody may be deprived of it. So far, so good. But the article continues, except when public necessity legally established clearly requires it. In other words, you have a right, but it can be taken from you at any time. It doesn't give you any protection at all. So we need a simpler rule, a stronger rule. Now, you have heard the non-aggression principle that libertarians talk about. And Matt Kibbe, who is going to be speaking after me, gives a short definition of it. Don't hurt people, don't take their stuff. That's it. Don't hurt others, don't take their stuff. No one shall initiate physical aggression against another person or their property. But that is not a right. That is stating a prohibition. It's not giving you a right. The right, the correct formulation, would be everyone may do what they want with what they own and only with what they own. The whole constitution of a free country, the whole constitution, could be summed up in a single article. It is, you may do what you want with what you own and only with what you own. That's it. That's it. You don't need anything else to organize a free country. There is an objection, of course. Well, people could only act if they own something. But of course, we do own at least one thing, our body. And with our body, we can put ourselves at the service of others. And big people, people who have assets, people who have projects, they want to organize with you the development of their assets, the development of their projects. And many people who work without starting in life with assets make rapidly more money than people who are established and have already big fortunes. But that is, again, what a free society does. So we have an article defining property rights that gives us peace because there is no conflict. There cannot be conflict, when you think about it, between people who respect their property rights. Sometimes they may be in bad faith. They may believe that this belongs to them. But that's where you have judges who will adjudicate these conflicts. But if you respect, if everybody respects their property rights, we have a society that is at peace. And we have a society that is just. Because what is justice if it is not, as Romans had defined it, giving each one their own? And then, if you consider that the exercise of property is your freedom, then you have a society that is peaceful that is just, and that is free. Do we want anything else? Property rights are the common good of humanity. But now, you could say, well, hang on. We started this conversation about should we obey the laws of our country. And I haven't spoken of legislation. I've spoken of legislation because if you have followed the argument, we simply do not need it. We have morality to guide us in our individual lives. We have contracts to allow us to get together with other people, forming families, forming businesses, forming charities. And we have rights to make a peaceful society with all inhabitants of the planet. So I ask you, why do we need legislation? Why do we need to obey any sort of laws? Because either they are redundant or they are stupid. So, is not, however, the argument that if these legislations are democratically approved, are they not like the rules, regulations of a club or of a company or a university? Well, are they approved? Okay. Are they approved? Are they sort of, have you signed a contract by which you said, well, I want to be part of this democratic environment? Not. And that is the big difference between giving consent, where you put your signature at the at the bottom of a document, and participating in a society in which you just happen to have been born and will impose legislation on you. Democratic legislation is not at all like the rules of a contract, like the rules of a society in which all the people who join there by consent. The first democracies were homogeneous enough, like Athens, like Rousseau's villages, homogeneous enough that people could have the same sort of life, objectives, and so on. But the big societies that we live in today, the countries, they are diverse. And what you have is that they don't have a common objective. What is the objective of Serbia? What is the objective of France or Germany? Is it to become a military power? Is it to become the greenest country on the planet? Is it to become a Puritan country with a certain religion, like some Islamic societies? What is the common objective of countries? It can't be imagined, it can't be conceived without at least a large percentage of the population that would say, without me, I don't want this. So there is a big difference between organizations which people join because they want to share in the common goal of the organization. They join a theater company because they want to stage plays. They join a university because they want to learn something or teach something. A big difference between these organizations and the large society, the society of a country, the society of human beings. And we cannot imagine for the large societies like a country a common objective that we would all want to participate in. And therefore, in the democratic process, you have a situation where a majority will be in a position to impose to a minority a certain objective, a certain culture, a certain religion, a certain language. And why do they want to do that? Well, they want to do that for a very good reason. If I don't do it to others, they will do it to me. That is the democratic process. The democratic process is, I want to impose my legislation on others. I want to vote, because if I don't, those people will impose their legislation on me. Now, this is bullies on a children's playground. This is not how adults, rational human beings, behave. You don't want to hurt people so that they don't hurt you back. The sort of society, I mean, the reason I don't vote is precisely because at the moment of casting my ballot, I would be saying, this is how I want other people to live. Why do I want to inflict this on other people? Why do I want to force them to live the way I live? All I ask them is that they do their own life and I do my own life, and that's it. When I was living in Russia back in 1989, I would sometimes meet old Soviets, and they would go on moaning, oh, in the Cold War, capitalism won and we lost. And I used to tell them, look, there was never a war between capitalism and communism. In the most capitalist society, all the people who want to give up their inheritance, put in common their means of production, share equally their income, they may do it. Пожалуйста. The war was not between capitalism and communism. The war was between capitalism and enforced communism. Communism imposed on people who didn't want to be communist. Because in a capitalist society, people can live in a kibbutz, can live in a commune, and if living in these kibbutz, these communes, these monasteries and so on, brings you so much peace and tranquility that other people join and other people join, and then communism would spread around the world without violence. The fact is that is not what was chosen. Violence was the option. And violence is what you do, at least symbolically, but not only symbolically, when you impose a legislation on a country. There are people who will object to this. And what you are telling them is that if you don't follow my rule, the rule of a majority, there will be men in blue, armed and threatening, who will come and arrest you at 5 o'clock in the morning. It was the idea of the French revolutionaries of 1789 that they would replace the king by the majority of the people. In other words, these people were incapable of understanding that they could be free, that they didn't need a sovereign, whether it was a majority or whether it was a king. They were like lackeys who were looking for a master. Now, we libertarians are masters of our own lives, and we don't need lackeys. So, I would like you to think about this. We don't need really legislation. We have all that is necessary for us to live a good life in peace and harmony with other people. And when you think about legislation, the only rule is, well, obey if you must, don't get caught. Thank you very much.